Back from the SMPTE show in Hollywood as we see monitors and LED lighting getting really exciting. We say goodbye to Lou Reed and Broadcast Engineering magazine, and the drive-in makes a return. All this on A Girl and a Gun up next.
A Girl and a Gun, episode 27, recorded on the 31st of October, 13, copyright public domain.
All you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. Come along and join the party while we stare at the sun.
Hello, welcome to A Girl and a Gun, the show for filmmakers and content creators. I'm Phil Moore, this is John Goodman, and you are John Maisels.
I am. I'm not John Goodman. What's this on your shirt?
This is from The Big Lebowski.
The big. Oh, okay.
All right, and if you,
What would I
Can
know?
you see the bottom of that shirt there? What does it say?
Can't see anything at the moment.
you read
Oh,
that?
Okay, there we go.
You are entering a world of
pain.
pain. If you know
Right.
the film, you get that joke.
I haven't seen the film, but it's a bit like this program, isn't it? Much like this program.
We've been entering a world of... You've just come from a world of pain.
I have. I've done one of my many annual pilgrimages to the US. So I was at the SMPTE conference. So for everybody, here we go. The SMPTE Journal, which is out now, and this is the special cloud issue. And that was one of the major topics that we had at the conference. There was a lot of focus on cloud, particularly on what you could run in the cloud. Not just the cloud for storage, which I think everybody's getting used to, but the fact that you'd run your entire business in the cloud. So,
running software directly via the
so
network,
you have software as a service, and you have other things as a service, which is the term used for when it runs in the cloud. And it's very interesting. I mean, at this point, there is sufficient bandwidth going on that you might or might not want to consider editing in the cloud, but you can actually do lots of things in the cloud with everything remotely that you might never have considered running, say, even
Well, a
2 or 3 years
small-scale
ago.
version of that is, in fact, how we run this show. We just use Google Docs. So our spreadsheet is in the cloud, which means they can see it, I can see it at home. It's one document.
But that's not a real time activity.
Exactly.
And this is the big difference. So anyway, a whole heap of stuff in here, including a really good article by my mate Al Kavalik.
Al
It's
Kavalik.
good. Yep. Well, he might be retired now. I didn't ask him, but he is Mr. Cloud. He's
Cloud.
gone through a holiday. He was Mr. Servers, Mr. Video
Mr.
Servers for a long
Cloud.
time. Anyway, so lots of stuff in there. The other hot topics, interestingly, 4K, everything.
Which we
was
talked
4K,
about in the last week's show.
which we did. That's right. When I had Paul Briscoe with me, and this interesting thing about switching signals in Ethernet infrastructure. So anyway, there it is, and we'll talk a bit more about some of the stuff that I saw at the show.
Once you've worked out what you actually saw, there was a lot there, I'm sure.
It was a huge amount.
You had some other magazines. You wanted?
Well, okay,
They worth showing?
this really is breaking news. So here we go, Broadcast Engineering. This is one of those magazines that if you're in broadcast engineering, you read. It's just
One would presume
great,
so.
it's a great magazine. Not terribly thick, but that's one of its beauties. In fact, it's not thick. It's
Quality instead of
It's
quantity.
intelligible. They've closed.
Oh.
This week is last issues, and nobody's quite sure why. They haven't
Completely,
been saying,
or just the paper
they've gone.
edition?
Nope, they've gone. They've gone. The people who owned Broadcast Engineering was the only technical property they had. They had a number of other properties. Maybe it didn't fit. It's gone. We're sort of hoping that somebody will pick it up, that an angel will descend, because there's just been this outpouring of grief.
Well, this is the state
when
of
it was
the
announced.
publishing industry these days, and I've been involved in magazines like this, technical magazines that have closed or shut down their paper editions, and they're trying to move it all online.
Yeah, but look, there's some great stuff in here. If you can get the last edition, and it is available online. Some interesting articles on audio monitoring, on hybrid routers. What else have I seen in here?
Get the last edition, it'll
Next
be a collector's
generation
item.
broadcast platform. It certainly will. That's right.
All right, we have other
Collector's
news,
item.
but let's run the bumper for it. Breaking news. And we haven't done news for a couple of weeks properly yet, so we're just going to catch up on a few stories. Starting, as always, with Australian news. Australian films are being held back by outmoded cinema first release. This one comes from The Guardian, but there's a similar story also from If magazine.
What do they mean by outmoded cinema first release?
Basically, releasing a movie in the cinema,
Yeah.
and then waiting 3 months for the DVD, Blu-ray release, and then waiting for another window, which is the subscription television, and then a year later it goes to free-to-air. So all of this, the windowed release, the
Yeah.
traditional
The,
release.
the traditional approach to releasing a
Right,
property.
which is already getting old hat. But for Australian movies in particular, the argument here, this one comes from The Guardian, which is not an Australian journal after all, saying the Australian film industry could benefit from simultaneous release at cinemas on DVD and online. People don't go to see Australian movies in the cinema, and when they do get released in the cinema, it's usually not at a local cinema where you can easily just go and see it. It just gets a very small release, only a few screens, and just dies a death as a result. And then
why
they
is
spend
that?
all this money on marketing, which then goes to waste. Out comes the DVD, and all that marketing value has been lost as a result. If magazine has the same story, this one by Don Groves, talking about the same basic problem, not at a cinema near you, Australia's film distribution problem. And he talks about, and Ruth Hartley from Screen Australia weighs into this. Partly it's the studios, the American studios, that's what they want for their films. So we have to follow course. Partly it's the distributors, like Hoyts. This is just what they're used to, you know. So the people that are controlling those purse strings just won't give it up. Why would Hoyts want to allow you to release it on DVD on the same day? It'll affect their business, they argue, of course.
What the business they haven't got.
Exactly, business they haven't got, especially with an Australian film. And Bob Connolly has spoken to this. We talked about this a few weeks ago. It says here, ancillary markets are no longer ancillary. They are the market, which means online, DVD, streaming, that kind of stuff. You know,
Stuff that comes out of the cloud.
stuff that comes out of the
Oh,
cloud,
out of the
exactly. It's all moving to the cloud. It is the cinema that is supplementary. The cinema is now the secondary choice.
I'm not sure that, you know, I'd agree with that for every movie. I don't think I really want to go and see Gravity on a screen.
No, that's one I wanted to see in the cinema. We talked
Yeah.
about this last week a little bit. But there are so many films, especially Australian films, that people say, oh, we'd like to see that when it comes to disc, when it becomes to Foxtel, when it comes to some other
It's a bit of
format.
a worry, isn't it?
But I won't see it in the cinema. And if it doesn't do well in the cinema,
Yeah.
it doesn't get released potentially online or in any other format. Anyway, people are kicking up a stink saying, look, the industry is changing. We need to change the way we think about this. And part of this, from Screen Australia's point of view, is their funding for the 40% rebate, the producer rebate, insists to get the rebate, you've got to have a cinema release first. But what if there's no value in that as a producer? Then you don't qualify for the rebate. You know, if you're making a straight to DVD.
Well, there is a
or straight
value
to
if you're a
Fox to-
producer and you want to get the rebate.
But if you can't get it in the cinema and all that marketing expense, you save yourself all this money for marketing. If it goes straight to DVD, straight to Quick Flicks or something like that, and you'll make more of a profit that way, but then you don't get the rebate back because that's not what Screen Australia are expecting of you. Again, it's the old cinema model, which is becoming outdated.
And of course, nobody knows. Fundamentally, everybody's
And no
betting
one-
the farm every time you do anything.
Yeah.
You're betting the farm.
Despite this doom and gloom, there are a couple of positive stories on the horizon. One of which is Perth, which is the most remote city in the world, after all, getting their first film studio
The most remote city in the world.
in the world.
Yeah.
It's getting they're actually building, and if we've got the picture there, if we've got the website there, there's a 3D model of their plans for this. Oh,
That's a good
we're
one.
having trouble loading it.
Love that picture.
Okay. A film studio with 3 sound stages built on the campus of Murdoch University, which is intended to become the hub for production in WA, Western Australia. And next to it, it's going to be a commercial development, 180-room hotel, conference centre, bars, gymnasium, a whole big thing. And cinemas, of course.
That works for me. A studio with a bar next door.
Studio with a bar
Pretty much
next
the
door.
gym. I think you can forget about.
It estimates, you don't want to, you mean you're not going to go to the gym yourself? Or you don't
Me?
think
No.
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 $50 million they're putting into this, and they're going to start construction in early next year, early 2014.
$50 million for a bar and a gym.
No, for the studio, for the whole thing. Yeah, $50 million bar. That's where the money will
I'd go to that.
Okay. Well, WA trying to compete with the eastern states by building a studio. Look, could be good.
Yep.
Could be another good reason to shoot in WA. Also, closer to home, closer to us, in Sydney, the last drive-in theatre. They died ages ago, but there was one still surviving in Blacktown until a few years ago, which closed down a few years ago. It's reopening.
Good heavens.
The Blacktown Skyline Drive-In presents a new take on how parents and grandparents once spent Friday and Saturday nights, they say there. We got the picture for that one there.
It wasn't parents and grandparents, though. That wasn't why. That wasn't why you went to a
Look,
drive-in.
our generation, growing up in the 60s, and we used to go to the drive-in,
Yeah.
it was a cultural event. It was wonderful. You get that crappy little speaker box that would sit on the window. Yeah.
And
Or would come
like-
through the car radio.
Yeah.
And we've seen movies that have these things. It was a real mark of that generation, the 50s and 60s, and the baby boomers, so-called. But then
I'll tell you what
along
I
came
remember
VHS.
about that. I remember being able to go up to the projection box when they had the blinds open at intermission, and you could look through the projection box, see the projectionist loading the reels of film and actually watch them strike the carbon archy thing. How it made the light.
Yep. So it's reopening. Great. So at least those of us who remember it and those of us who want to experience that, there is at least one drive-in still in this country or in Sydney, the Blacktown Skyline Drive-in
good
is
on them.
reopening.
Good
So
on
just thought I'd let Sydney-siders know about that. This from Screen Hub. There's been a report on drama production in Australia, in New South Wales. It's up. We are making more shows. So in Australia, in the past financial year, $752 million, a rise of 9% on the previous year. Up 25% on that's 625 million year up, was up 25% from the year before that. So it's going up and up. And the trick here is that most of that increase in drama production is TV rather than feature films. TV grabs almost 50% of television production is drama these days, Australian drama,
Right.
which is great. So if you want to work in this industry, you're working in television, folks. That's where the money is. That's where the jobs are currently. Expenditure in TV increased by 27%. The number of hours is up by only 19%, which means budgets are up. We're not making quite as much compared to the budget. So the budgets are up for the shows that we are being made,
That's
which
good
is a good
news.
thing. And to quote an unnamed crew member of a TV series here, he said, "They haven't got enough money here to give us bananas." So I don't know where the money's going, but maybe it's going
the
into
budget's
production
up, but they're
value.
not paying the crew anymore.
It's not going into wages, but it's going into production value to some extent, I guess. But the bar is being raised. So we're competing with the new shows from America, obviously, the Breaking Bads, the House of Cards and those kinds of things. So we're trying to improve that, which is all good. I just wish it also had an impact upon wages and crews. But at least there is more work generally.
Yes, and that is important.
Yes. So the jobs are in TV. On Screen Australia, which I mentioned earlier, Alex Pryor again from Screen Hub, just a little note here. Screen Australia are moving. They're moving offices. They were up in King's Cross. They're moving down to Ultimo. Their new address will be 45 Jones Street, Ultimo, and they're moving on the 4th of November, which is like next week as we speak.
It's that great screen that you see again on Screen Hub when you're not actually logged in.
Oh, wasn't it logged
as a
in?
member? No, no,
Okay.
it fell over.
It fell over, okay.
We'll fix that in post.
It's okay. It was only text anyway.
Ah.
Basically, the gist of this is the rent will be cheaper. I think they've got more space and there's more money there for the Screen Australia can put into potential investment.
In Ultimo, they've got more room in Ultimo than
Than they had in King's
than
Cross.
they do in King's Cross.
Yeah. So they're happy. It's a stunning heritage building, but with a very contemporary set out. So, okay, good. They're moving. If you want to contact Screen Australia, look for them in Ultimo now. Moving right along, Western Digital. I came up with this like an hour ago, just before we went to air. Western Digital are hosting a competition called Project Sci-Fi. Any budding short filmmakers out there who are into sci-fi projects, you have the chance of winning a $10,000 cash prize. Ooh.
Ah.
So if you want to find out more, look at thepowerofchoice.com.
Why Western Digital?
thepowerofchoice.com.
I mean, what's in it for them? Why would
They're
they
the
be doing
sponsors. I don't
Yeah, I know.
don't
But
why
what's the demographic they're going after? It's like a disc manufacturer going after
Well,
science fiction.
every modern film, digital film, needs hard drives to work on. After all,
Yeah, but so it could be a rom-com. It'd still be on a hard drive.
do we care? Western Digital are sponsoring it.
Good on you.
Good on you, Western Digital. Do we have the website there? Could we see that?
Probably not.
wdthepowerofchoice.com. It'll be in our show notes, and there it is. In fact, there's a quick trailer there. Can we run that trailer? Let's have a look. Okay, we're back. And there's going to be Western Digital prizes, so presumably hard drives. And
Yes.
from them.
Coming
Look,
to a
if
disc
you're into
near you.
making some sci-fi shorts, you get all the details from that website.
Okay.
And that's coming up real soon. VFX industry. You remember some in our earlier episodes, last series, there was quite a big to-do about Rhythm and Hughes and Digital Domain, all of that kind of thing, going out of business. Well,
And being bought by India.
exactly. Digital Domain, which was almost going to come to Australia at one point, they were co-created by James Cameron, but he left that business a long time ago. They got sold to a consortium in Beijing called Galloping Horse, and then a Mumbai outfit called Reliance MediaWorks. And I'm not going to go through this. There's a saga of people buying them out in Chapter 11s and all sorts of things. They're now owned by Sun Innovations, who trade in scrap metal and plastics. God knows why.
Okay.
Why did they buy a vision? It's stock
Why
prices.
they buy an effects business?
Why did they buy an effects business?
So it can
Yes.
make all the plastic vanish.
Ultimately, Galloping Horse sold its shares for $50 million US, et cetera, et cetera. So the assets are being pumped into... The point of this story is that they have been contributing to the film Ender's Game, which has just been released, or about to be released. So they're still going, but there's more additions to their saga. If you care what's been happening with Digital Domain recently, the new twist in their saga, again, I've got this from screenhub.com.au. Dave Tilley wrote the article there. But they're still working, they're still out there, at least they're still in business. Rhythm and Hughes are also, well, they're not in business anymore, kind of, but there has been a settlement. They've gone into bankruptcy, they did go Chapter 11, and there's been a $1 million settlement
This
for
was
the
just
5
after doing
workers.
Life of Pi.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
there was that, when they won the Oscar for Life of Pi,
Yeah,
and they were
and
saying,
then
and went out of business. So earlier this year, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they
well,
terminated...
Chapter 11 is protection.
You're quite right. Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, I
Yeah,
should say, which is
yeah.
what they've written here. And they fired 238 employees
Let go.
that were let go.
They released.
Here it says they
200.
terminated.
They fired and probably did. Yeah.
And before the company was sold to Prana, which we mentioned,
Yeah.
last series, for 1.2 million, yet another Indian company. There's now a $1 million settlement on the table for those employees that got let go, effectively. After $10,000 payments are made to 2 class representatives, $980,000 balance going to various people, and the attorney fees, etc. as well. So we'll see what's left after that. So that's the latest on Rhythm and Hughes. At least the fired workers are getting something out of the deal.
Yeah.
Now, there's a few things here that you scheduled, that you got from SMPTE,
Yeah.
which was Telstra and Ericsson conducting the world's first
Well,
LTE broadcast.
That wasn't from SMPTE, but this
That is
is
something you came
yeah,
across,
this is
yeah.
new. This has only happened in the last couple of days as we roll. What is interesting about this is that they're using LTE, so this is like 4G, to broadcast video. Nothing new about that. What's important about it is it's a point to multi-point. So if you think about the way the net works, every time you watch a video, you're watching a unique instance of that video. The server is sending it to you. Somebody else is watching the same video, they're watching another transmission of the same video. So now you've got double the bandwidth, or triple the bandwidth, or quadruple the bandwidth. Well, this was a demonstration of broadcast over LTE. So this means one transmission and many receivers
Yeah.
of the IP. That turns the telephone network essentially into a broadcast platform. That's significant.
Right. And what's the infrastructure for that? Is there any major change we need to make to our infrastructure? This was just a test?
It's
Or-
not the infrastructure so much. It's the channels are the same. It's what's, I guess, at the start and end. So at the start, you need to have coders that understand the fact that they are broadcasting, and the infrastructure needs to be able to pass the streams just through to the far end. But in the case of an LTE transmission, it means essentially it's going to appear on multiple base
So this is
stations
basically
simultaneously.
streaming technology stepped up one, yeah? Or there's
Yeah, with essentially one stream appearing everywhere.
one stream?
Yeah.
We're talking about live broadcast. Yeah.
Live or whatever.
Or streamed live or
it's
whatever,
going,
yeah.
potentially, this turns the telephone network economically into a broadcast platform.
Right.
Okay, so
Yep.
more as we go.
More as we
It was
go.
an interesting techo demo, but it proves a point. Which
Well,
is really
this
good.
was, and if you want to read more, this was on contenttechnology.com.
contentandtechnology.com.
Content-technology.com,
Yeah.
and there's a story there. But it'll be in our show notes.
Just
so-
search for content and technology and you'll get it.
Yeah, but the specific story will be in our show notes if you want to have the direct link.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, there was a couple of things from SIMT you
Well, there's a
found.
couple of things I
Yeah.
saw at SIMPTE that really captured my attention, and we'll sort of roll those out over the next couple of weeks. Let's start with the monitors. This really did catch my eye. So we'll have a look at the graphic here. So okay, this is a Korean company that is producing monitors, and what particularly caught my eye was the fact that they had a group of these monitors together, one of which was showing pictures, one was showing audio, one was showing a waveform monitor, another one was showing something else. It's basically any of these displays could do all of that. And they're SDI and HD SDI in. The larger ones also accept composite and component and YC formats.
Right.
This is an incredibly useful sort of platform to have. But wait, there's more. One of the things you need very frequently these days, you know, now that we're all in the domain of flat panel screens, is a monitor that will show you multiple sources at once. So they make a range of monitors that are quad split, like the ones you can see on the screen here.
Right.
So this is instead of having to hang an external quad split device ahead of the monitor actually does it itself. It just takes 4 inputs and displays them as a
brilliant.
quad split. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now finally, the pièce de résistance, and this is the little monitors, and get a look at this. This is 8 monitors, devices in their range. It's rack mount monitors.
We got that? Yeah, we got
One of which, the one on the top left there, we could probably click on that to go in and have a look at it. This is 7 little monitors in
look at
the
that.
rack frame.
Yeah.
So if what you want to do was look at 7 pictures at once, or confidence monitoring, or just confirming that something's running, this is occupying, I think it's 1 or 2 RU.
It looks like a 1RU.
But the resolution of these monitors is more than the resolution of standard definition television.
With the little 1080p, are they? Or
No, they're down a bit smaller than that, like the 760
Or 720p maybe.
Yeah, but like by 500. But they're sort of, no, they're not 720p. They're about 700 and something pixels across, 500 lines.
But it's good
But
enough to
they're
see.
still,
Yeah.
absolutely, and they're still. This is more resolution than you would have had on a standard
Yeah.
definition monitor in the past.
Right.
Okay, so this is really cute and worth a look, definitely.
Oh, that looked gorgeous. Like they're all right there in front of you.
And
Yeah.
when I have a photo that I just grabbed with my iPhone, which will appear on your screen now through the miracle of
Which we'll add in
post-production.
post-production.
Which, yes, will happen in
Okay.
post-production, just so the studio crew don't panic. And I looked at this, and there was, I don't know how many pictures were there. They were all identical. You could sort of trust that the colorimetry and
Oh, yes, okay.
okay, so it was like a couple of different types of monitors, but the pictures all looked the same.
Yep.
The same picture on
They're
all
all
of them looked the
calibrated
same.
perfectly.
They all just came out looking the same. This
Yeah.
is really great. So that's good.
Okay, good.
I was very impressed with that.
Who would have thought broadcast monitors would be so exciting?
For some of us, it is. You
Yes.
sort of live in this world. It's what you deal with.
And you also saw some exciting light panels.
Well,
we love
look,
light
about
panels.
3 or 4 years ago, I was in the conference, and there was a paper about development of LED lighting. So these guys brought out this, what looked like a standard 2K flood, a standard Mole-Richardson format 2K Fresnel.
Yep.
And they shone it up at the ceiling and it dutifully burnt a hole in the ceiling. It looked like a 2K light would, except it was more daylight. So it was probably up around about 5600 Kelvin rather than incandescent 3300 Kelvin. It was absolutely burning a hole in the ceiling.
Yeah.
It was very, very bright.
The old-fashioned lights can get
right.
very hot.
And they said, well, actually, the housing doesn't need to be there. So they took away the housing and they had this tiny little thing, which was the LED component, going off like a little thin wire off to a couple of D cells. And that's what was driving it. So the equivalent of a 2 kilowatt light actually consuming probably about 300 watts, which you could do from the NiCad
Do we have
D
the
cells
picture
for a
there?
while.
We've got the...
Well, we've got some pictures we can
Yep.
show in there. What's really important
There it
about this is that at the high end, these lights aren't cheap. This one you could go to the B&H website and they're about $4,600. This is the equivalent of a 2 kilowatt flood, but it's only pulling about 360 watts. It doesn't care if you feed 80 volts or 250 volts into it. You can just plug it straight into anything and it will work.
Yeah.
You could see on the back it had a couple of RJ connectors. You can take it off to a DMX dimmer. It's also got a knob on the back where you can dim it up and down very efficiently because you're not wasting anything. And the colorimetry doesn't change as you dim it.
Oh, good.
Now, this has gone from a couple of guys showing this as a laboratory curiosity to actually something out in production in 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
Extraordinary. So are incandescent lights dead? No, there's too many of them around to be dead, but are LEDs the way of the future?
Well,
they're here.
LEDs are taking a long time to take hold. I mean, they've been around for a while now in one
Yeah.
form or another, and there's plasma lighting on the way as well now. But yeah, everyone should be using LEDs, plasmas. Get away from incandescents. They're much safer.
Look,
they're
you're
more
talking
power
about
efficient.
you're talking about something that's going to last 50,000 runtime hours, which is probably better than a whole lot of bubbles. It's going to use substantially less power, typically about 1/8 of the power of an equivalent incandescent.
Yeah.
It's not going to do a whole lot of the nasty things.
They
that
might be
incandescent do.
expensive up front, some of these brands, but like
Yep.
they last, yeah.
But they've got now nice even colorimetry across the range. So you could gel them up the way you did with incandescent lights and actually get something useful from them.
Terrific. Moving right along.
All very impressive stuff. So I was solidly taken.
Great, and I want to get some here. We need more LED lights here at CEFA, to be honest.
Which saves so much in air
We
conditioning.
would say so. It's getting hot under all these lights.
Isn't it?
Thestage.co.uk, there's an article here from Nicola Merrifield that Paul Roseby, who's an acting teacher, artistic director at NYT, basically says most actors do not require years of drama school to learn their craft. According to the National Youth Theatre, NYT, artistic director Paul Roseby is saying acting school basically is largely a waste of time. Get out there and do some work. Get out there and do something. Look, doing workshops every now and then.
That really
Upping
worries
your skills in short courses is good,
Yeah.
but doing 3 years at a major drama school, if you've got the talent, you've got the talent.
Even if you've got the talent, Phil, I contend that you can always benefit from input from
He's not saying no
experienced
training
teachers.
at all.
No, he's saying get out there and do it.
He's
no
saying
matter
a
how
3-year
crap you
course
are.
tends to be a waste of time for those that have the ability.
Possibly, and it might be a waste of time for people who don't have the ability
And
to.
therefore a waste of time for those.
But
yes.
I don't agree that, like, getting out and doing it, which is one of the things we do in vocational training. You actually get out and you do the stuff and you learn by doing it. That's good. But getting out and doing it and not having teaching, we see every week exactly how that works.
Well, okay.
Not well.
They're incredibly expensive and the majority of actors don't need 3 years. Then he says they need various modular courses every so often to go to. They don't need 3 years. You don't need to learn how to act. You need to learn how to sell yourself. You can either act or you can't. So He's not saying don't study at all, but he thinks actors need more
I'm-
training on how to sell themselves, how to market themselves,
You
how
just
to get
listen
the
to
word
me,
out.
Sonny. You get out there, you go to school, you learn your craft.
Learn your well, yeah. Do you need 3 years to learn that craft, though?
Some people do.
So this is different.
Look
What
how
we're
long
doing-
it's taken us to get this show to work.
Yeah, this is a bit different
you call this
because
working?
to learn this craft, filmmaking, camera, editing, all the rest of it that goes into this, there's more technical aspects to it, right? And there is craft in there. An actor's craft, it's a lifelong experience after all.
You know, just to create a bit of controversy, I'd like to be disagreeing with you, but I can't. I can't. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to disagree with you on this one.
Okay. Anyway, there's one opinion about whether you need a 3-year acting course or just, and most people can't afford it anyway. They do short courses. I'm happy to hire actors who've done some training, had a bit of experience. They don't have to be fresh out of 3 years at NIDA or somewhere else like that.
And
as long as they've
I'm
done
happy.
something.
I'm happy to hire camera operators who know which way is left. You know, like that left, not the other
Yeah.
left.
And I'd rather hire a camera operator or DP who's had some training but also had a bit of experience on a set and known what the real world is like.
Yeah.
Which we do try to instill here at the college after all.
Right.
But on a real set, it can be a bit
That was
different.
the ad. In
That
case,
was the
case
ad.
you missed it. In case you missed it, that was the ad.
That was it. I'm sure other colleges try to do the same thing. Moving along. There is serious competition for the GoPro. There's a couple of cameras out there. Here's a new one called the High Speed Mini HD camera from Pile Audio.
From Pile Audio.
Yeah, audio. Yeah, Pile Audio announced an exciting new camera
EYLE Audio.
that will shake up the mini HD camera world. So again, it's like the GoPro. It's a small camera, waterproof casing, good specs, 1080p, 720p, micro SD card slot, shoots up to 120 frames a second.
Whoa. So it's a good sporting camera. It's
looks
just something
like
you can wear and
Yeah.
run gates and
Looks like a good little sporty
That
teaching
blur.
cam. And it's a third of the cost of the Hero 3, which is the
sorry, a
current
third
GoPro,
of the cost.
of the current GoPro.
It's a third of the cost of a camera that already isn't particularly expensive for what it does.
Exactly, which is how much is that going to be? It's like less than $100. I don't have an Australian pricing here.
This is starting to get silly.
If you want to find out more, this comes from the Planet 5D blog. I haven't got a website for the makers of this camera specifically.
Ah, yeah, but we'll work it out in post and super it on the screen because we can do that.
It's available now from pileaudio.com. So look at pileaudio.com and follow the links.
Right.
Check it out.
Yeah,
Could be useful
there you go.
if you want to get a whole bunch of them to do some action cam stuff. Netflix. Netflix have actually said they won't be getting Breaking Bad until next year. What a shame. But that's not the story.
Oh, good.
That's not the story. The story is basically they have announced that they're actively looking at doing more feature film production. They're doing TV series like House of Cards,
Yep.
Arrested Development, and now Orange is the New Black. You've been watching this?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it.
It's pretty good. I've been watching it. It's a good show. From the same Kenji Johan, I forgot her name, who did Weeds. This is her new series. So Netflix are looking to do more feature film production, directed to Netflix, no cinema, just feature films.
So they're
And-
not going to get the rebate.
No, well, no, they're not
They don't
going to get
care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They're looking initially at documentaries, but this will go into drama production as well. And part of the story is they were asked whether they were going to do sports like NFLs. No, they're not interested in sports. They want to do drama. And I think that's great. Great on Netflix in focusing on drama production. This is like Sci-Fi Channel doing their own, Sci-Fi Channel movies. Hopefully it'll be better quality than Sharknado and things like that.
Yeah.
Look, great. If Netflix are getting into that, there's a prospect there for Australian filmmakers maybe to be involved in some of those productions, which would be
You
great.
never know.
Looking forward to seeing those series.
At least when sci-fi does a movie, you know what you're getting. It's not
You know
gonna,
what you're
and it's
getting.
not going to be a rom-com.
And if they don't take themselves too serious, they can be fun.
They can.
We've got to have an IP story,
Intellectual property.
intellectual property. 15 years ago, the American Congress kept Mickey Mouse out of the public domain. So they passed a law which was the Sonny Bono law, which extended
Sorry?
Sonny Bono, Bill Clinton passed this law, which was, I think Sonny Bono was the sponsor of it,
Right.
that extended the copyright for copyright holders.
This is the one where it normally falls over after 50 years.
Yeah, so they changed the laws a while back. It's a confusing issue in America, but basically they changed it a while back to 50 years after the author's death. And now then for corporations it was 75 years after the creator's death.
Right.
But we're already hitting that bumper. They did in 1998. They extended it. Now they want to extend it again. This, of course, is being driven by Disney. We want to make sure they don't lose rights on Mickey Mouse. It's being driven by people like the Gershwin estate, because of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue and pieces like that are potentially out of copyright. Gone with the Wind, all these old films from the 20s and 30s are potentially running out of copyright. So all the big studios want to keep it going, of course.
When you think
and
about
there is
anything
value
that happened in the 20s is very closely, very rapidly approaching 100 years old.
Exactly. And
Quite
the
a bit more than 50.
So the 1976 legislation granted retroactive extension for a lot of these things. These works remain under copyright still. Copyright works from the 1920s, as you say, were scheduled to begin falling into the public domain in 1998. But they stopped that from happening, and now they're going to extend it yet again. Of course,
a
Oscar
worry.
Hammerstein, the Gershwins, Disney, people like this, they want to keep the rights to their work. The trouble with this is lesser-known works that fall under that same banner, that the studios therefore own an extended license on, but don't bother doing anything with. You don't have the right to put them in the public domain and release them and do something with them. And if these old classic movies maybe that just they don't think it's worth the effort putting out there, we've got to wait for them to go public domain before we can start seeing them again. And there's lots of old silent films, lots of old films from the talkies area, you know, that would be great to see, but they're just sitting on a shelf somewhere.
I wonder if that
gathering
means,
dust.
like, if you take an old movie like, say, Ned Kelly, the first movie ever, the first long-form movie ever made, first full-length feature film.
Yeah.
Is that out of
That-
copyright now to the extent where you could just show that in a public place? And
Technically,
not
yes. Ned Kelly, which is in public domain, and it's at the National Film and Sound Archive.
Yeah.
However, there is a Blu-ray and DVD release of it recently by Madman. They actually own some IP on that because they made the DVD release. So there is technically some copyright on that film because of that.
Are we
reason.
heading into sort of like open source material, but the new copyright is on the value add?
Yes,
like
exactly.
the repackaging.
Yeah, and in fact, the picture back there, if you've seen it, that we've got on our backdrop, is from that film, which is public domain, but arguably the film is sort of licensed to Madman currently. But yes, so they're trying to extend the copyright on all of these things, and in fact, on this issue, which we don't have in our lineup, but I'll mention this week on ABC, there's a series called Big Ideas, and there was a debate on the pros and cons of is copyright dead, have the pirates won? And it was a rather dull debate, to be honest, based on the speakers, but it's a really important subject. And they were talking about, has piracy won? Is there a future for copyright law? Should copyright law change? Is it still relevant? All of that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that debate, have a look on ABC's iView and the Big Ideas, and you'll find it in there. There's a copyright, which was the most recent episode of Big Ideas. That's it. That's all of our story. That's all of our main stories. What I'd like to finish up with here, though, we've had a couple of deaths recently that are worth noting. Marcia Wallace, who was Mrs. Crabapple from The Simpsons.
Miss
Ms. Crabapple,
Miss
the teacher
Crabapple.
from Crabapple, it's pronounced Crabapple.
Krabappel.
From The Simpsons has died. There she is. There's Marcia Wallace there. She died this week. So unfortunately, it looks like they might be retiring the character of Ms. Crabapple
probably
and valet
have to,
to
wouldn't
Marcia
they?
Wallace. But the big one, unfortunately, this week was Lou Reed, passed away.
Yes, and many articles talking about walks on the wild side.
There's Lou, yeah. Walks on the wild side.
Interestingly, that he didn't really set out to be a musician.
Let's play this while we talk. Here's a bit of Lou Reed's Perfect Day from the classic album Transformer. Okay, which is one of the great albums.
Do we have the
rock
rights to
albums.
do this?
We're talking over the top
it's
of it.
all
We'll be
It's fair use. We're doing academic dissertation
Yes.
here. Yeah.
So Lou Reed, you tell me what you were going to say. So he started out.
You've
Not as a musician,
thrown me.
you said.
No. But it generally regarded. I mean, he just said, you know, he wanted to be a muso playing in the background. But it's generally regarded that Velvet Underground was one of the most creative influences of its time.
They were such a small band, didn't sell many records, but they were so influential. Yeah.
But the reason that Lou Reed got a Guernsey, I mean, you wouldn't say this is a guy who should be singing, but the reason he got the Guernsey was because the philosophy was if you wrote it, you sing it. That was just the group philosophy.
And he was a poet, effectively.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Certainly, the song for which he is possibly best known in pop terms, which is Walk on the Wild
Which
Side.
is from that same album,
Walk
yes, Walk on the Wild Side.
Just the bass riff from that, which just sort of happened. Herbie Flower playing the double bass.
Which was two bass. It was actually a double and an electric synced, yeah.
But that, when it turned up, the coloured girls sing, Whoopi Goldberg saying, you know, this coloured girl is going do 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 do. It's he certainly created interest.
If you want to look back in the Lou Reed stuff, look at the early Velvet Underground stuff with himself and John Cale and those people. And of course, he was part of the Factory with Andy Warhol, and he was sponsoring them effectively.
Yeah.
And I think they sort of make appearances in some of those.
And he was married to a performance artist.
Whose name escapes me.
Yeah.
Then he went solo and he did those flowers. There was Transformer was his big solo album, his second solo album, the main one, which was engineered and produced by David Bowie. And his album after that, which actually, to be honest, is my favourite, Berlin, which was a really moody, dark, very atmospheric record, really great stuff. And then he made Rock and Roll and a few other decent ones after that. Street Hustle, which was a great one. But those were the two great albums from him, from his solo albums. And Transformer in Berlin. If you look at nothing else, look at those two albums and have a look back at the Velvet Underground days. Valet to Lou Reed.
Valet.
Okay, that's our show for the day. But we do have, that's the news for the week, but we do have a Pick My Brain question, which came from Claire. And let me just look it up here. What was Claire's question? Okay, this was an important one that came up recently.
Well, surely it needs an introduction.
It needs an introduction. It does indeed. So let's pick my brain. Let's pick my brain. Okay, so Claire asks, how does one deal with using other people's copyright and trademarks in your film?
Run away.
Run away?
Run away, Claire. Run away. Don't even deal with it.
Well, if I was a lawyer, I would say absolutely not. Don't use anyone else's copyright and trademark in your film because you might get sued. The trouble is, how can you avoid it?
It's a little difficult. Do you know what was really interesting? So the show that Robin Williams is in.
The new one.
The new show.
Mad, what's it called? The Mad Ones or something.
Whatever it's called. It's gone out of my head. But they have been dealing with products as though the products are real. And in the first episode, they talked about a campaign for McDonald's. So McDonald's is getting all this placement, but with the associated intellectual property of McDonald's. But in fact, McDonald's didn't even know that they were in the script. So there was
no permission sought for that?
Nope. No permission sought at all. They just treated it as though McDonald's was a client and off they went.
I think the worm is turning here. There was, back in the 70s, you would see all sorts of things in the backgrounds, like in street scenes or whatever, and people didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
Then there was a few litigations and people got very nervous about it. Things like that. Things like the short animated film called Logorama that won the Oscar a couple of years ago, which is chock-a-block with trademarks. It's made out of trademarks, thousands of them. It's like daring people to sue them.
Yeah.
I've been shooting a short film this past couple of weeks, and we've got some movie posters in the background, and we're being very careful. Can we show that one? Should we not have that one on the wall? Maybe not this one, but this studio, maybe we can get away with showing these. And there's also some karaoke singing in the film, and I made a point of using public domain songs. And you've got to be careful what the music is, you know. I would say if you're making a short film and you're concerned with these things, try to avoid Disney, Pixar, Marvel, because they can be litigious.
Yeah.
Try to avoid Coca-Cola, because they have been known to be litigious.
Avoid IBM.
But look, Apple don't seem to... Here we go. Here's an Apple. It's in our show. Most people have notebooks like this with an Apple logo on the back. Apple are not sponsoring
By the way,
us.
okay, so here's my Apple thing, and Mr. Apple, I'd like a new one.
It's free advertising.
Shh.
You know. And Apple will not pay for
product placement
because they're getting it anyway. And there are shows. Yes, there you go.
Ah, there you go.
There are
Bad
shows.
logo
If
day.
any of you watch Nickelodeon, they famously have all of their shows with Pear products to avoid showing Apple.
Oh, okay.
And that's a big joke in all the Nickelodeon shows. It's across all of their branding. I would say there's certain trademarks to be careful of, but you can't help showing copyright and trademarks in things. It's just inevitable. This is a trademark. Everything is a trademark.
Not
of
unless
some
you're going to be.
kind,
Yeah. This.
or a
By the
design.
way, Veronica, copyright 2013, A Girl and a Gun Enterprise.
And in fact, Veronica is dressed up like this because technically this is Halloween. We're filming this on Halloween. That's the best we could do at a short notice for
The best you could do for Halloween was a flak jacket and a welding mask.
I'm not quite sure what
You
she's
are
coming as,
just
but-
not going to do it. Okay. Look, being Halloween, I thought maybe we should just end with a bit of a tech thing.
Yes.
That's a complete non sequitur
Okay.
there. So here you go. This is John's tech tip of the day. Things that you should be carrying with you. Since we are carrying iDevices here, and since it's not possible to run out the door without carrying an iDevice, there are two little cables that you need. One, I'm very familiar with this one. You need to get one of these. These are not expensive. It's about $30.
That's the monitor one?
Yeah, so that's the one, it's the 30-pin connector, and on the other end, it's a VGA, and that means you can plug it into all kinds of things. You can plug it into a large format monitor in your hotel room. You can, plug the audio into the iPhone, listen on headphones while you're watching something on a big screen. This is a really good, cheap device that works with lots and lots of
Cheap
things.
from Apple?
Well, yeah, but it's $25, $30. You could actually get them cheaper on eBay from strange Chinese.
There we go. What's the price
Yep.
on that? Yeah, you got $39.
Well, and you can get them cheaper than that at JB. Okay, here's the other device, and I've just got one of these, so I'm experimenting with it. So this is the component cable. It just happens that at home, all of our gear, all of our high definition pictures actually flow through an analog component infrastructure. And you go,
Yeah.
well, like, why wouldn't you use
Well,
HDMI?
yes,
Well, the
exactly.
first thing is our TV doesn't have HDMI. I actually don't
It's an
have.
old telly.
Sure. So I don't have any HDMI gear in the entire house. But here's the other thing, is that when you switch signals on HDMI, it's slow. It's
Yeah,
got to go
it
and
is.
work out, do I have the HDCP? Am I entitled?
forgets it
Can I
half
get
the
this?
time.
Can I switch? So you go click, 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 and you switch, and it's like 5 seconds later it gives you the picture because it's sorted out the bits.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to compare pictures side by side, analog technology is still good for that. And I would defy most people to pick the difference between an SDI signal and a good analog component video at the same rate, at say 1080p. You won't pick it. Anyway, so in order to do that, I went and I got this little cable. So this arrived today, in fact, from somebody up the Central Coast. It was another eBay thing. It arrived very quickly. And so you've got the 30-pin connector again. But here's the deal. On the end of this, and I've just got a couple of RCA connectors, on the end of this, you've got your three components, Y,
Yep.
P, R, P, B. You have audio. So there we go. There's left and right audio. It's analog audio, which is fine. Hanging off the end is a USB connector. It comes with the standard Apple USB power supply, so that keeps it running, and you plug that into the pad. And then you can watch stuff on your TV in component, and it is quite good quality. Quite good.
Why wouldn't you just AirPlay it?
Well, because my TV doesn't do that.
Which means you've got to have an Apple TV device as well.
Well,
Yeah,
you have to have
sure.
lots of things.
Yeah.
The fact is, again, this is like under $30 and this works.
Okay.
So, does it work perfectly? In fact, about half the devices we've tried it on haven't given us pictures that were either visible or in the format we expected.
Yes. So
But really good. And so I'm going home with my iPad to watch a whole heap of the shorts and long forms that are up for the ACTA Awards this year. The what was the Australian Film Institute
well, let's know if you can get this
is
working.
now ACTA, and the quality of those streamed over the web is great.
Right. I actually have at home, I've got, rather than doing that, I'll have the iPad, but I've got a Roku box. So if anything like that, I'll just channel
it through the Roku.
I don't want to have cables all over the place anymore.
Maybe you don't, but hey, I'm the technologist in this studio. So.
So Apple, there's your free ad.
Well, it's not so much Apple, but
Well,
this
it plugs into Apple
yeah, it does.
devices, aren't you?
You really need this in your kit.
Okay,
It'll get you out of
if you have an iPad and you're trying to, and you don't have an an Apple,
Whatever it is.
and you can't AirPlay the stuff.
cheap.
then you've got to get the cables, and they're the kind of cables. There we go.
go.
That's our show for this week. Thank you all for watching. If you want to contact us, you can reach our website at girlandagun.tv, tweet us at @agirlandagun, and you'll find us on YouTube, A Girl and a Gun podcast. Anything you want to finish up with?
No, I'm happy with that.
That's it. There we are. There's the address there. Email Veronica at A Girl and a Gun if you want to email us. Perfect.
That's us.
Veronica's but that's it for this episode. Thank you very much, John, as usual.
Phil.
Welcome back to Australia, and everyone, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.